Naruto, the ninja who picks up ultimate powers. Like, share and subscribe. Episode 71. Time flies quickly. A week passed by Natsuki Tsunade. Regarding Tsunade's Hokage appointment, it finally came down. On this day, the sun was shining and very lively in Konoha, and all the villagers and ninjas, one by one, wearing white clothes embroidered with fire characters on their backs, walked out of the house and continuously converged towards the Hokage building. Since today is Tsunade's Hokage succession ceremony, from today onwards, Tsunade will officially be named Hokage, and the news of her becoming Hokage will also be sent from the Land of Fire to the 5 powers and villages in the ninja realm. This will represent the complete end of Konoha's reign under the 3 generations of Hokage, with a new Hokage coming to an end, along with the new policies she brings with her, and the possible impact on the ninja world. After all, Konoha is still the first ninja village in the ninja world, and this is recognized by the entire ninja world. On the roof of the Hokage building, Natsuki took Hinata, Jiraiya, and 2 Hokage advisors, plus some department heads of Konoha, as well as heads of families such as Inuga Butterfly and Hinata, all gathered here. Tsunade, on the other hand, was wearing a 5th Eye Hokage's Hayori, plus a Hokage cloak, standing at the front of the crowd. This succession ceremony was much more solemn than the hasty succession ceremony that Tsunade remembered in Natsuki's memory. Natsuki-kun, Tsunade-sensei is so handsome. Standing beside Natsuki, Hinata looked at Tsunade's heroic appearance and spoke. Nodding, Natsuki whispered in approval. After all, it is a hero among women. Tsunade-sensei can become a female ninja leader in the entire ninja world. It is normal to have such an attitude. Hearing Natsuki's words, Hinata nodded and spoke. But, speaking of this, Hinata turned his head to look at Natsuki. Sensing Hinata's eyes, Natsuki turned his head and asked, "What's wrong?" "But what?" Shaking his head with a smile, Hinata spoke. "No, nothing." Retracting his gaze, Hinata looked at Tsunade's back, and there was a word in his heart that he didn't say. When Natsuki-kun becomes a Hokage, he will definitely be more handsome. In the crowd on the rooftop, Hinata looked at Hinata and Natsuki, who were whispering from the corner of his eyes, and there was a faint smile on his serious face, and his good mood could be felt by the people next to him. After faintly glancing at the youngest people here, Natsuki and Hinata, these spirits were clear in their hearts. Hinata Hayashi gave birth to a good daughter. These small actions are all private, and they cannot affect the inauguration ceremony of the Hokage. Not long after, Tsunade stood in front of the Hokage building, with a smile on his face, took off the Hokage cloak above his head, and said aloud, "From today onwards, I will govern Konoha Hidden Village. 5th generation Hokage." After Tsunade's voice fell, a cheer erupted in front of the Hokage building, followed by a shout, "Go Dame, go Dame, go Dame." Soon, such cheers sounded throughout Konoha Village, and the entire Konoha Village seemed to erupt with an unprecedented vitality. I have to say it again. The sacrifice of 3 generations of Hokage is worth it. Listening to this cheer, Xiaomu smiled slightly, and there was a strong touch in his heart. Becoming a Hokage may not be as helpless as he thought. This minute, Natsuki. I'm starting to look forward to it. Early the next morning, Natsuki's house. Bang bang. The door of the small courtyard was knocked, and Xiaomu, who was drying his clothes, couldn't help but turn his head and look at the door. Which one? With some doubts, Natsuki opened the door of his yard. Nara Shikamaru was full of lazy colors, and when he saw Natsuki open the door, he spoke. "Yo, good morning, friends." Seeing Nara Shikamaru appear, Natsuki's face had a hint of doubt. "Shikamaru? Come and play with me? Come on in." After that, when Natsuki was about to give way, Nara Shikamaru shook his head and said, "Although I also want to play, but not now. Hurry up and change clothes." Naruto-sama summoned the 2 of us. "It seems that there is something." Raising his eyebrows, Natsuki nodded and said, "Well, I see. Wait for me for 3 minutes." After speaking, Natsuki turned and walked into the house. 3 minutes later, Natsuki, who had changed his clothes, and Shikamaru, quickly left Natsuki's house and headed towards the Hokage building. In the Hokage office, looking at the 2 Naka shinobi vests set aside, Natsuki and Nara Shikamaru, I knew what Tsunade meant. "You too, you already know, right?" Putting down the documents in his hand, Tsunade looked at Natsuki and Nara Shikamaru with a smile and spoke. After discussion, in the last Shu Shinobi exam, the results and performance of the 2 of you were recognized by the village, so from today onwards, friends, Shikamaru, you 2 are a Shinka Shinobi of Konoha, keep up the good work. Hearing Tsunade's words, Natsuki's face was really so colored. When Nara Shikamaru looked for him, Natsuki wondered in his heart whether he was advancing to the middle of the ranks. Now it seems that his guess is very accurate. Originally, Natsuki thought that Tsunade would directly promote him to Sannin. After all, his strength was enough. I couldn't go straight to Shinobi, and Natsuki felt a little pity. While thinking about it, both Natsuki and Nara Shikamaru reached out and took Tsunade's secret technique, that is, the vest and new brace handed over by Shizune. "It's ugly." Looking at the green vest in his hand, Natsuki complained, "Even if I were to endure, I wouldn't wear this vest." Nara Shikamaru had a troublesome expression. "Naka ninja? Future tasks will definitely be more troublesome, trouble." Hearing the words of Natsuki and Nara Shikamaru, Tsunade's face turned dark, and Shizune's face was holding back a smile. Whether it is Natsuki or Nara Shikamaru, this character is quite excellent. "You too, fuck me," Tsunade said unpleasantly. "And friends, you have been idle at home for too long, and now the mechanism of the village has been restored, so from tomorrow, you who became a Zongnin, temporarily lead the 8th class to carry out tasks, understand? Hearing this, Xiaomu was stunned for a moment and asked, 8th shift? I know. Of course this will not refuse. How could he refuse such a good thing as performing a mission with Hinata? After receiving the letter of appointment from Naka Shinobu, Natsuki and Nara Shikamaru left the Hokage office. Compared to the idle Natsuki, Nara Shikamaru still had to help his father, so he left first. Natsuki looked at the time, took the Naka Shinobi vest, and went straight to the 3rd training ground. Advanced to the middle of the Shinobu, this good news, naturally to tell Hinata and share it with her, and tomorrow will lead the 8th class on a mission, this surprise, but also want to tell Hinata quickly. Episode 72, really? Hinata held Natsuki's Naka Shinobi vest in his arms, and with a look of surprise, he asked, Natsuki-kun will be on a mission with our 8th class for the time being? That's great. Looking at the introduction that almost wanted to jump, Natsuki's face was full of spoiled colors. Really, compared to Natsuki's promotion to Naka Shinobu, which had long been expected in Hinata, she was most surprised by the mission with Natsuki, because in this way, she would have more time with Natsuki. Although he is not very friendly to Sunset Red, Hinata still wants to say that Sunset Red and the 3 of the 8th class are good at. The phase is not good. Tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, we will meet at the Hokage building, and I will inform Shino and you later. After Hinata's excitement passed, Natsuki spoke. Now, let's go shopping first. Hearing Natsuki's words, Hinata held the Naka Shinobi vest and nodded. Yes, I listened to Natsuki-kun. Together, the two headed towards Konoha's shopping street. The next day, it was 9:30 in the morning. After bringing all the equipment, Natsuki changed his shoes in the Xuanguang position. Mom, I'm out. This mission may also take a few days to come back. Hearing this, the mother standing next to her nodded clearly. Be careful along the way, take care of Hinata-chan. Nodding, Natsuki had a smile on his face. Don't worry, I won't let anything happen to Hinata, I swear. Reaching out and brushing Natsuki's hair, her mother spoke. I know. After turning around and leaving the house, Natsuki's figure jumped on the roof and quickly walked towards the Hokage building. In front of the Hokage building, the 3 members of the 8th class are already waiting here. Hinata, why hasn't that guy come yet? Inuzuka's face, with an inquiring color, looked at Hinata next to him. In the past, when you arrived, that guy would have arrived. Hearing this, Hinata said with a smile on his face, Xiaomujuan still has to explain some things to his mother and the time hasn't come yet. Pushing the glasses, the oil girl Shino said with a calm face, yeah, you're in too much of a hurry. Hearing the words of Shino the oil girl, Inuzuka directly turned his head and stared at the oil girl Shino and spoke. Verbose, it's not okay if you're not in a hurry, friend. That guy has already surpassed us too much. If I don't work hard, won't I be completely uncompetitive in the 6th generation of Hokage? Friends are fierce rivals. Hearing this, the oil girl Jinai said with a calm face, not only friends, Naruto will also be your fierce enemy. The last time the Chunin exam, Naruto defeated you. His face froze, Inuzuka turned his head, and his face stopped talking. Shino not only pierced his heart fiercely, but also sprinkled salt and cumin on it. Swish. At this time, a sound of breaking wind sounded, and Xiaomu's figure appeared in front of the 3. Good morning, you're coming soon. Hearing Natsuki's voice, Inuzuka spoke. No, we just arrived. Shino the oil girl pushed her glasses and dismantled the platform again. Yeah, you didn't say that just now. Could it be that you were Tsundere? Avoid Tsundere, even me, some can't stand it. Hinata stood beside Natsuki at the moment, smiling at Inuzuka with an embarrassed face. I want you to take care of me. Inuzuka looked at Shino the oil girl angrily, and said, forget it, friend, what level of mission do we perform? Hearing this, Natsuki spoke. It depends, let's take a look first. But the level of the general task will not be too high and will not be attitude. The task above the sea level, this level is more suitable for us. After all, the 3 of you have no experience in performing advanced tasks. After explaining, Natsuki took Hinata's small hand and walked towards the mission office. When Natsuki was performing the task, he was still quite serious. Especially in the case of Hinata, you need to be especially cautious. If something happens, Natsuki will have to regret it. Now the leader of the 8th class is Natsuki. For his decision, Hinata naturally will not object. Convinced Natsuki's Inuzuka and oil girl Shino are also willing to listen. This degree of cooperation is still very high. In the mission office, after Xiaomu checked the C-level tasks, his eyes looked at the sequence of B-level tasks. Huh? This task, when Xiaomu looked over, a B-class escort mission came into his eyes. Escort character, Fuji Wind Snow Painting, Mission Commissioner, Asama-san Teifu. The name of the delegate of this task is nothing, but the escort character, Fuji Wind and Snow Painting, has attracted Natsuki's attention. Snow Country, Wind and Snow. This should be the real name of Fuji Snow Painting. She is a small country, the rightful heir of the Snow Country. This task is quite simple. There is no danger, and you can see the scenery of the Snow Country. Although I don't know why this task is idle here, it stands to reason that Asama-san Teifu should have entrusted Kakashi directly. But since he met, Natsuki also planned to take on this task. This B-level task, we took it. Natsuki spoke. Please record it. Hearing Natsuki's words, the staff present quickly handed over the task scroll to Natsuki's hands. Outside the Hokage building, Natsuki glanced at Inuzuka and Shino the oil girl and spoke. Yeah, Shino, this mission is to leave the land of fire. There is a high probability that there will be a battle between ninjas. Give you 2.5 hours, and in half an hour, meet at the gate of Konoha. Hearing this, the oil girl Shino and Inuzuka both nodded at the same time. Yes. Whoops. The figures of the two quickly left this side. After seeing the two leave, Natsuki looked at Hinata beside him and spoke. Hinata, let's go. I'll wait for you outside your house, and when we're ready, we'll go. Hinata looked at Natsuki suspiciously. Doesn't Natsuki-kun need to prepare? Patting his ninja bag, Natsuki spoke. When I went out, I was already ready, and now I am waiting for you. Hinata nodded, and the two quickly headed towards the Hyuga clan. Half an hour later, at the gate of Konoha, when Natsuki and Hinata came over, both Inuzuka and Shino the oil girl, both carrying a backpack, were waiting for them. Are you all ready? Natsuki glanced at the two and asked. Both Inuzuka and Shino nodded. Ready. Snap. Putting his hand on the grass pheasant sword on his waist, Xiaomu smiled slightly. Then, 8th shift, go. Cellphone. The strong wind stirred up the dust, and the figures of the four of Xiaomu had disappeared in place. Episode 73. In the cinema, Natsuki and Hinata are leaning together, holding some snacks in their hands, and are watching the movie Princess Adventure playing on the screen. Inuzuka and Shino the oil girl sat in the other row. Xiaomu-juan, is there really no problem if we don't go to see the client? Hinata was a little worried, looked at Natsuki, and asked. Tsunade-sensei knows, I will probably teach you. Hearing this, Natsuki squeezed Hinata's small hand with a calm expression. Don't worry Hinata, no problem, we watched the movie, just to find out who we are going to protect next, that's all, everything else, just in passing. Looking at Hinata with a smile, the expression on Natsuki's face was bad. This isn't just for the sake of watching a movie with you, got it? The little face blushed, Hinata gently bowed his head. I know. Looking at Hinata like this, Natsuki's playfulness became big, gently playing with Hinata's little hand, taking advantage of her lack of attention, kissed it, and bit Hinata's earlobe. Movies or something, where is it comparable to Hinata? 2 hours later, the movie ends. The four of Natsuki, who came out of the movie theater, walked towards the meeting place designated by the mission client. Friend, is our mission this time really to protect that Fongyun princess? Following Natsuki and Hinata, Inuzuka asked. Shino the oil girl pushed her glasses, with helplessness in her tone. Yeah, I need to remind you that in the movie just now, our protection goal is the actress who plays Princess Fongyun, Fuji Wind and Snow Painting. Hearing the oil girl Shino complaining, Inuzuka's face froze. Of course I know this kind of thing, idiot. Helplessly glanced at the oil girl Shino and Inuzuka behind him, and Natsuki's face was stunned. Yeah, Shino, be serious. We are about to meet the client. Do you want us to be rejected by the client? Hearing Natsuki's words, Inuzuka and Shino the oil girl were pale, and even Hinata became serious. Nodding with satisfaction, Xiaomu walked straight into the filming site of a crew with a no entry for idlers sign. Just walked in. Tap tap. The sound of hurried horses' hooves sounded, and Natsuki looked up and saw Fuji Wind and Snow Painting dressed as Princess Fongyun riding a white horse towards the side. Wait. At the same time, behind Fuji Fengshui Painting, a middle-aged uncle with sunglasses shouted anxiously, Miss Yuki. When this middle-aged uncle came to Xiaomu's face, Xiaomu directly reached out and stopped the other party. Wait. Was stopped, and the other party's face showed an impatient color. Who are you? He took out a scroll from his ninja bag and spoke. You are the client of the Konoha ninja who took over the protection of Miss Fuji Kazuyuki, Mr. Asama-san Teifu, right? This is the task pickup proof. With a cursory glance at the task receipt certificate in Natsuki's hand, Asama-san Teifu spoke. This kind of thing, whatever, compared to this, Miss Yuki has already run away, since you have taken the task, then quickly find her back. Hearing this, Natsuki smiled and looked at the three Hinata. Let's go. Cell phone. The sound of breaking wind sounded, and the figures of Hinata's three had disappeared, leaving only 3 wind pressures. Asama's face was shocked, and he spoke. What about them? This scene more or less shocked Asama-san Teifu, so he had such a reaction. Natsuki patted Asama-san Teifu's shoulder and spoke. Don't worry, Asama-san, my subordinates will definitely bring Miss Yuki back soon. They are very good ninjas in Konoha, and the mission completion rate is 100%. Of course it's 100%, C-level and D-level missions. It's just that Asama-san Teifu didn't know about this situation, so after hearing Natsuki's words, he couldn't help but feel relieved. Half an hour later, there was a fierce dispute in the crew. The escaped Fuji Wind and Snow Painting, of course, was not able to escape the tracking of the 8th class, and was directly tied up and brought back without cooperation. Details of the mission this time. The three of Hinata all know, and naturally they will not let Fuji Wind and Snow Painting leave like this. The ninja's strength in carrying out the task is quite high. Even if it is to protect the target, it will be forcibly brought back. After all, the client of the mission is Asama-san Teifu. Looking at Fuji Kazuyuki and Asama-san Teifu, who were arguing at the moment, Inuzuka asked, Friend, this Miss Snow Painting does not cooperate. What should we do about our mission? Natsuki glanced at Fuji wind and snow and said, I'll fix it. Hearing Natsuki's words, Inuzuka didn't ask much. After all, Natsuki was the leader. After a while, seeing that there was still a stalemate, Natsuki walked directly towards Fuji wind and snow painting. You belch. Seeing Natsuki, Fuji Fengshue's face showed a color of doubt. Boom. Without waiting for her words to come out, Natsuki's hand knife hit Fuji Kazuyuki's neck. Lifting the fainted Fuji wind snow painting, Natsuki looked at Asama-san Teifu. The task we received is to escort Miss Yuki to the land of snow, to protect her safety during this period. Since the protection target does not cooperate, then only some small measures can be taken, right? Glancing at Asama-san Teifu, he handed him the Fuji wind snow painting. The mission can continue. Asama's face showed a stunned and slightly nervous color. Yes. Half a day later, a sailboat sailed above the ocean. Natsuki sat on the guardrail of the boat, looking at Hinata next to him, who was looking at the endless blue sea with a curious and fresh face, and his face was full of spoiled smiles. This time, the mission was not so much for the honorarium, but Natsuki simply wanted to take Hinata out to play. After all, this task is to go abroad for business, expenses, travel. As for the wind and flower waves and the wolf-tooth avalanche, in Xiaomu's eyes, there was no resistance at all, and that chakra amplification equipment, even more so. How does it feel? A smile appeared on Natsuki's face, looked at Hinata beside him, and asked, the feeling of the sea. Nodding, Hinata's face showed a happy smile. It's great. Pinching Hinata's little face, Natsuki spoke. I think it's good, although there may be some changes in the middle of this journey, but Hinata's case, you only need to be responsible for protecting that Fuji wind and snow painting, and leave the rest to me. Hearing this, Hinata's face had a color of doubt. Change? Nodding, Natsuki spoke. That Fuji wind snow painting is not an ordinary actress. Episode 74, not simple? Hinata looked at Fuji wind snow painting with a curious look on her face. Nodding, Natsuki spoke. Because she's a real princess, huh? Turning his head, Hinata looked at Natsuki incredulously, with a shocked look on his face. Really? Nodding with a smile, Natsuki admitted, but also began to change the subject. Then again, Hinata, this is for you. While speaking, Natsuki took out a brown scarf from his ninja bag and handed it to Hinata. Scarf? Nodding, Natsuki spoke. Soon we will enter the land of snow, where the temperature is very cold, and the scarf will keep you from getting too cold. Hearing this, Hinata's face showed a happy smile, and she sweetly accepted the scarf that Natsuki gave her. Time passes day by day, and the days of sea navigation are quite interesting. At the very least, Hinata and Natsuki were not bored at all, and no one disturbed the two young people. The two guys, Shino the oil girl and Inuzuka, were ordered by Natsuki to protect Fuji Kazuyuki. In this regard, the two have no opinion at all. Watching Fuji wind and snow painting filming is better than eating dog food. This day, morning, above the sailboat, it is more noisy, because above the forward course, there is a huge glacier lying there, blocking the way. Xiaomu's body is still the same clothes as at the beginning. Looking at this glacier, a smile appeared on his face. Here it comes. Hinata, who was standing beside Natsuki, heard this and asked suspiciously, what's wrong? Natsuki-kun. Natsuki looked at the glacier and spoke. Just look at it with your white eyes, and you'll know. Although puzzled, Hinata still made a seal. Roll your eyes. Under the gray-white vision of white eyes, Hinata keenly discovered that above this glacier, there were 3 chakra breaths. His face changed, and Hinata spoke. 3 chakras in total. Natsuki-kun. Is the other party an enemy? Nodding, Natsuki glanced at the crew who seemed to be planning to climb the glacier and shoot, and pressed one hand on the grass pheasant sword in his hand. Hinata, inform Ye and Shino to protect Fuji wind and snow painting and let the crew wait a while before starting shooting. While speaking, Xiaomu's figure flashed and fell directly towards the sea. Wait until I solve these 3 people, and then start shooting. Hinata looked at Natsuki's figure. Yes, Natsuki-kun, be careful. Swish. Natsuki's figure, turning into an afterimage from the sea, directly killed on the glacier. As for the things on the boat, it was naturally handed over to Hinata. Snap. The figure fell on the glacier, and Natsuki's gaze glanced at the place where the 3 chakra breaths were. Choke. The grass pheasant sword was drawn, and Natsuki spoke. I've already asked to see the 3 of you. Come out. Crash, crash, crash. Hearing Natsuki's words, 3 figures stood up from the snow. Wolf-tooth avalanche, crane wing blowing snow, winter bear hail. These 3 people, but defeated Kakashi a long time ago, and are also the final bosses of the trip to the snow country, the 3 powerful and clean from the snow-hidden village. Who do I think it is? Seeing Xiaomu, Wolf-tooth avalanche's face showed a hint of disdain, and spoke. It turned out to be a little ghost in Konoha village. If it was a shinobi, the Wolf-tooth avalanche might still have some interest. After all, this house is not even in Kakashi's eyes. Looking at Xiaomu, Wolf-tooth avalanche waved his hand casually. You too, kill him, I'll go get snow back on the boat. Hearing the order of the Wolf-tooth avalanche, the winter bear hail and the crane wing blowing snow both nodded at the same time. Yes, boom. At the same time as the words fell, winter bear hail threw out his skis, and his figure quickly rushed towards Natsuki, and a pair of wings spread out behind the crane wing blowing snow, also killing towards Natsuki. Seeing the winter bear hail and crane wing blowing snow, the gaze of the wolf-tooth avalanche took back from Natsuki's body and looked at the sailboat. The figure moved, and quickly headed towards the sea. Facing the simultaneous killing of the winter bear hail and the crane wing blowing snow, Natsuki's face remained unchanged. Turning his gaze, Xiaomu looked at the winter bear hail, and a killing intent flashed in his eyes. You're dead, Sting. The thunder on the body flashed, and Xiaomu's figure appeared in front of the winter bear hail in an instant, and the grass pheasant sword in his hand emitted a blue light, and Xiaomu's huge and terrifying thunder chakra poured into the knife body. The grass pheasant sword raised and slashed directly towards the neck of the winter bear hailstone. Seeing Xiaomu's sudden burst of speed, the winter bear hail was still extremely shocked, but when he saw Xiaomu raise the pheasant sword to attack, he was extremely disdainful. It's useless, my chakra armor. Zhing. The sound of the knife interrupted Winter Bear Hail's words, and Natsuki directly slashed out. Supersonic Thunder Escape Saber. Boom, poof. The defense formed by Chakra's armor could not be prevented for even a second, and the sharp grass pheasant sword directly wiped the neck of the Winter Bear Hail. One. Natsuki said calmly. The second one. Zhing. The grass pheasant sword was like a kunai, and it was directly thrown by Natsuki to the crane wings that flew in the air and blew snow. In the air, although there was a pair of wings, when crane wing Chueshua saw the grass pheasant sword penetrating towards him, the grass pheasant sword was already close at hand. So fast. His face changed drastically, and crane wing blowing snow forcibly stopped his forward posture, and his head was tilted to avoid the attack of the grass pheasant sword. But, can dodge. Xiaomu below, seeing the action of crane wings blowing snow, showed a sneer at the corner of his mouth. So naive. The next moment, in silence, Natsuki's figure appeared in front of crane wing blowing snow, and his right hand reheld the grass pheasant sword. Zhing poof. As soon as the light of the sword passed, a scarlet blood mark appeared on the neck of the crane wing blowing snow. Click. The grass pheasant sword was sheathed, and Natsuki calmly spoke. Flying Thunder God technique. Your life I'll take it. Snap. When Xiaomu's figure fell on an ice rock, the body of the crane wing blowing snow fell to the ground, and the winter bear hail fell to the ground. And at this time, the wolf tooth avalanche has not yet been able to come to the beach. Killing the winter bear hail and the crane wing blowing snow was completed in 3 seconds. Two guys wearing chakra armor and whose combat effectiveness is no more than the elite ninja are not enough to make Natsuki serious. Raising his gaze and locking onto the wolf tooth avalanche that had just landed, Natsuki said lightly, "You're the third." Swish. Falling on the ice, the wolf tooth avalanche turned his head and looked at Natsuki. When he saw the corpses of crane wing blowing snow and winter bear hail, his pupils shrank. Spike? Can't help it. When the wolf tooth avalanche looked at Xiaomu, his face was full of retreat. When the chakra armor has no effect, he is just an ordinary special shinobi. Episode 75. Call. The cold wind blew through, and the wolf tooth avalanche, which had been accustomed to this climate in the country of snow, felt a biting cold at this moment. Killing intent. Killing intent that has never been felt before. This little ghost, much stronger than Kakashi back then. The expression on the face of the wolf tooth avalanche was solemn to the extreme, and he said in his heart, because he defeated Kakashi, who was in the dark part and was still very immature despite his chakra eyes, the wolf tooth avalanche was a ninja who did not pay much attention to Konoha, especially if Natsuki was still a child. He even fantasized that in the land of snow, under the increase of Chakra's armor, his wolf tooth avalanche was just 2 words. Invincibility. It's just that reality slapped him hard. Fantasy is fantasy after all. Swish. The figure retreated sharply, and the wolf tooth avalanche raised his hands to make a seal. A corner of Bingdu. Zheng. At the moment when his seal was not finished, Xiaomu's whole body was bathed under thunder chakra, and he appeared behind the wolf tooth avalanche, and the grass pheasant sword in his hand carried the fierce thunder chakra. With your sealing speed, it's enough for me to kill you 10 times. Natsuki's tone was full of disdain. One knife flow and sound speed, pull the knife. Boom, poof. With a slash, the grass pheasant sword easily broke through the chakra armor defense of the wolf tooth avalanche and slashed through the opponent's neck. Click. With the grass pheasant sword in Xiaomu's hand back to the sheath, this battle completely came to an end, and after glancing at the corpses of the 3 people of the wolf tooth avalanche, Xiaomu shook his head and spoke. The consequences of relying too much on chakra armor, that's it. As the words fell, his figure flashed, and Natsuki went directly towards the ship. On the deck, the crew members who witnessed this battle the whole time, one counted one by one, all with shocking colors. Although there is no earth-shattering ninjutsu battle, in the eyes of the crew, after the thunder flashes 3 times, the battle is over, and this strength is really quite amazing. Swish. Natsuki appeared on the ship in an instant, standing beside Hinata. Natsuki-kun, are you alright? Hearing Hinata's words, Natsuki nodded and said, "Don't worry, just 3 small shrimp, not yet my opponent, nothing at all." Natsuki's words made Hinata's face show a sweet smile. Glancing at the people on the deck were all looking at themselves in awe. Natsuki knew that staying here would put great pressure on the entire crew. After a deep groan, Natsuki looked at the oil girl Shino and Inuzuka on the side. "Yeah, Shino, next, please the 2 of you." Hearing Natsuki's words, Inuzuka and Shino both nodded with serious faces. "Got it." After getting a reply, Natsuki took Hinata's small hand, and the 2 walked towards the cabin. Looking at the back of Natsuki leaving, Fuji Fengshua's eyes fell on Natsuki's body from time to time, with complex emotions. The pleasure of rejoicing, peace of mind, and revenge. After this ninja attack, no matter how much the director likes to make movies, he needs to figure out the situation. Fuji Fuji wind and snow painting should be called the identity of Fenghua Xiaoxue. After all, it still can't be hidden. So when the sailboat docked here on this glacier, in a conference room in the cabin, Asama-san Teifu explained everything. This meeting, Natsuki was not interested in participating. Hinata naturally accompanied Natsuki, so the people who went to listen to the whole thing were Inuzuka and Shino the oil girl, and as for the question of whether the task would continue, it was also left to the two to decide. Probably the road will continue. Wearing trench coats, Natsuki and Hinata play in the snow on the deck. Xiaomu-kun, you don't seem to like this mission very much. Holding snowflakes in his hand, Hinata looked at Natsuki and asked. Hearing Hinata's words, Natsuki smiled and said, "It's not that I don't like this mission, I just don't like to feel those troublesome things. I have this time, I might as well stay with you. Anyway, whether it's Snow Hidden Village, or the wind and waves, for me, it's very weak." Hearing this, Hinata nodded, with a smile on his face, and played with the snowball in his hand. "That's okay, Natsuki-kun, I like you the most." Hinata believed that Natsuki would not cheat on her, so she was a little worried in her heart. Also disappeared. This time's task, Xiaomujuan said, is to bring her out to play. Since that's the case, don't think about so many things for the time being. Just have a good time. Anyway, everything has Xiaomuju in there. Now Hinata's trust in Natsuki is completely 100%. Time passed quickly, and 3 days later, the crew entered the land of snow. As Natsuki expected, Inuzuka took the lead, and Shino the oil girl agreed, and this time the mission continued. I don't know if it's because Xiaomu killed the 3 of the wolf tooth avalanche in seconds, which gave Fenghua Xiaoxue enough confidence. This time Fenghua Xiaoxue, there was no intention of running away, but obediently followed the crew into the country of snow. Of course, this is also because she has no chance to escape. The 3 members of the 8th class took turns to watch the wind and snow. Here, stepping on the snow, Natsuki looked at everything around him with a hint of thought on his face. Do you say? Natsuki looked in the direction where the car was located below, and under the snow, there was this layer of railroad tracks. Sure enough, it's here. Swish. As soon as his figure moved, Natsuki came directly to the side of Fenghua Xiaoxue, who was wearing makeup. Hinata, yeah, Shino, be careful. Seeing Natsuki's serious face, the 3 Hinata were stunned and became serious. With a puzzled look on his face, Inuzuka asked, "Friend, what's wrong?" Natsuki was about to explain when Hinata suddenly spoke. There was chakra close, what a speed. At this time, the ice of the originally frozen railway suddenly melted, and a railway appeared directly in the eyes of everyone, as if it appeared out of thin air, which was shocking. Seeing this scene, a faint smile appeared on Xiaomu's face, and he turned his head to look at Fenghua Xiaoxue. "Miss Yuki, your nightmare is coming, but don't worry, after today, your nightmare will no longer exist, because the life of this nightmare will be accepted by me." After a pause, Natsuki continued, "I'm not very good at preaching, but I still want to remind you that you have forgotten what you told your father about your dream of becoming a gentle, kind and strong princess and actress." At the same time as the words fell, Natsuki looked at the 3 Hinata and spoke. "The enemy is coming, you 3 protect the mission target, and the rest will be left to me." Hearing Natsuki's words, the 3 Hinata nodded with serious faces. Yes. Episode 76. After arranging their respective tasks, the entire crew has moved away from this side. Asama-san Teifu didn't know where he had gone. Natsuki probably knew what he was going to do, but he didn't care. It didn't take long. Woo. The honking of the train sounded, and immediately after, in the cave through which the crew came over, a train rushed out directly, and finally slowly stopped in front of Natsuki and others. "Long time no see, Xiaoxue." A voice sounded, and the wind and flowers wearing heavy daimyo clothes appeared at the front of the train, looking at the protected wind and snow from a distance. "I haven't seen each other in 10 years. Hearing the sound of the wind and flowers, the wind and flower Xiaoxue standing behind the 4 people of Xiaomu trembled, and looked at each other stunned. Just after saying hello, the gaze of the wind and flower fell on the 4 of Xiaomu. "A ninja of Konoha? Is it you 4 imps who killed the wolf tooth avalanche then?" Shaking his head, Xiaomu stepped forward a few steps and spoke. "No, to solve those 3 weaklings, I alone is enough, and I don't need the help of others at all." Hearing Xiaomu's words, Fenghua Futao's face remained unchanged, and he spoke. "Forget it, even if you solve it alone, your task will end here." At the moment when the voice of the wind and waves fell, yikes. One by one, the ninjas with the 4 heads of the snow-hidden village jumped out of the train and rushed towards Natsuki and the others with a clear target. Seeing the ninja rushing over, a smile appeared on Natsuki's face. "Don't you all shoot, I just want to experiment with a ninjutsu." While speaking, Natsuki's hands took out 8 kunai, all of which were printed with special techniques. Swish. As soon as the hand moved, all the kunai shot out towards the snow ninja in an instant. The hands were sealed, Natsuki's body, chakra erupted. Ninja law bitter shadowless doppelganger art. Swish. 8 becomes 16, 16 becomes 32. In an instant, Natsuki's kumu almost completely covered the direction of Yuki's attack. Click. Holding the grass pheasant sword, Xiaomu's body erupted into a terrifying blue thunder chakra. Spiral flash super will dance roar style. Swish. In an instant, Xiaomu's figure disappeared directly, and the next moment, the dazzling blue light filled the entire battlefield, making people just see a flash of light in front of him. Poof. Ugh, ugh. A burst of screams erupted at the same time, and then all the blue light disappeared, and all the snow ninja lay on the ground, blood staining the snow on the ground red. Well, that's awesome. Inuzuka saw a godlike expression on his face and spoke. For a moment, it was really in an instant. All enemies were destroyed. How powerful was that guy, friend? Hinata, you know this trick, spiral flash, what's the formula? The same face was shocked, but not as shocked as Inazukaya. Hinata looked at the battlefield with strong adoration and love, did not answer Inazukaya's words, just looked fixedly. Hinata has never seen this trick, but she probably knew what this trick was all about. Flying Thunder God's art. This secret of Natsuki, Hinata is very clear. After all, on her arm, there is also the Flying Thunder God technique planted by Natsuki. However, what Hinata did not expect was that the technique used to rush that Natsuki said would be so powerful. Sure enough, Natsuki-kun is a genius. Teeth. The equally shocked oil girl Jinai was the first to come to her senses, and spoke. That move is called Spiral Flash Super Will Roar 3 style, don't forget. Tooth. This trick will be a miracle. Hearing Shino the oil girl's words, Inazukaya looked stunned. Shino actually remembered such a complicated name? Pushing the glasses, the oil girl Shino spoke. Because it's handsome. At this time, Hinata's face also spoke. Super handsome Natsuki-kun's Spiral Flash Super Will Dance Roar. Hearing the words of the two teammates, Inuzuka found himself on the verge of becoming a complaining character now. However, when Inuzuka's gaze fell on Natsuki in the field, he faintly became a little desperate, and then became adoring. However, this guy is really strong. In the field, holding the grass pheasant sword of Maibursha Chakra, Xiaomu looked at the wind and waves with an indifferent face. Just now you said that our mission is here? So what to say now? Hearing Xiaomu's words, he came back from the shock, and there was a trace of horror on his face that was raging. What happened just now? Sting. The figure flashed, and Xiaomu directly launched the thunder instantaneous body technique, and instantly killed in front of the wind and flowers. I won't answer a dead man's question. Airplanes. As soon as he grabbed it with his left hand, a spiral pill appeared directly, and instantly became very huge, and Xiaomu shot directly. Ninpo Super Jade Spiral Pill. Airplanes. Boom. In an instant, this super large jade spiral pill with a diameter of more than 2 meters in Xiaomu's hand hit the wind and flower in front of him with a very unreasonable direct frontal bombardment. Rip and pull. The daimyo costume on the body was directly torn apart, revealing the latest chakra armor inside, and an invisible protective shield was completely torn apart after only resisting for a moment, and the whole body of the wind and the waves was violently blasted out. Thundered. The railway and the train were directly broken, and the body of the wind and the waves slammed into the mountain, and a deep pit was blown up on it. Die too much to die again. In this way, all obstacles to this tour will be gone, and then you can enjoy the journey. Receiving the sheath, Natsuki clapped his hands and a satisfied smile appeared on his face, turning and heading towards the 8th squad. At this moment, on the top of the mountain, Asama-san Teifu had rushed over with the samurai he knew who were loyal to Kaziba Koyuki. It's just that before he can shout, everything here has already made Asama-san Teifu and others confused. Coming to the front of Fenghua Xiaoxue, Xiaomu said lightly, "Your nightmare, this is over. In exchange, take us to see the secret treasure of the wind flower family." Hearing Xiaomu's words, Fenghua Xiaoxue glanced at the hexagonal crystal on her neck and nodded. Good. It's normal to promise. After all, Fenghua Xiaoxue did not value the secret treasure that took her father's life, and Natsuki helped her take revenge, and in the end, she did not refuse Natsuki's power, so she would directly agree. Of course, Natsuki is very clear that this so-called secret treasure, that is, for the country of snow, is still a little useful. For other kingdoms, there is simply not much use. Not to mention Konoha, which almost exclusively has 2 seasons, winter and spring. Episode 77. The secret treasure of the wind flower family. Natsuki took Hinata's hand and looked at the geothermal generator with a smile. After the sunlight hit the huge crystal walls, in a special chakra fluctuation, the icy and snowy scenery here changed very amazingly in the blink of an eye. Spring. The temperature is no longer cold, the ice and snow are no longer there, the tender green grass and flowers, and the warm wind blows. This place is as beautiful as a fairyland. Grabbing Natsuki's hand with both hands, Hinata's face showed a sweet smile and spoke. What a beautiful view. Hearing this, Natsuki nodded in satisfaction. If Hinata thinks it's beautiful, that's fine, the end of this journey is here. There was a happy smile between his eyebrows, and Hinata looked at the scenery here for a long time. Mainly because her sweetheart accompanies her, she will feel that everything here is exceptionally beautiful. There is a saying called, "Where you are there, it's called heaven." That's probably the truth. A week later, after visiting various places in the land of snow, the 4 of Natsuki left the land of snow under the farewell of Kazuhana Koyuki and Asama-san Teifu, followed the crew who completed all the filming tasks, and embarked on the journey back to Konoha. The way back is obviously going to be much smoother. Half a month later, at the gate of Konoha, looking at the familiar gate, Natsuki had a smile on his face. Finally back. Hearing Natsuki's words, the faces of Hinata and the 3 also showed a smile. It's back. Natsuki turned his head and looked at Inuzuka and Shino the oil girl and spoke. Then, yeah, and Shino, just disband here. I'll go back in a while to hand over the task. The honorarium of the task will be sent to the hands of the 2 of you. After all, this is an S-class mission. and the money is still a lot. Hearing Natsuki's words, both Inuzuka and Shino nodded in approval. Inuzuka grinned, hugged Akamaru, and spoke. Then me and Akamaru, let's go back first, see you later. After Inuzuka finished speaking, Shino the oil girl also spoke. Me too, faux pas. After the two finished speaking, they both turned and left, leaving Hinata and Natsuki at the gate of Konoha. Hinata, do you want to go back first, or do you want to go to the Hokage office with me? His gaze fell on Hinata's body, and Natsuki asked. After a little thought, Hinata spoke. I'll go accompany my mother, and I'll go back after Natsuki-kun returns from handing over the task. Hearing this, Xiaomu's heart warmed, and he looked at Hinata, his eyes were full of pampering. I know, then please Hinata go and report to her mother first. Gently bowing his head, Hinata spoke. Don't worry, Natsuki-kun. Nodding, Natsuki glanced in the direction of the Hokage building and spoke. Then I'll go to the Hokage building first to raise the mission level this time, and I'll see you later, Hinata. Swish. When the words fell, Natsuki's figure had already disappeared at the gate of Konoha. Hinata also quickly walked towards Natsuki's house. From this point alone, Hinata will definitely be an excellent wife in the future. In the Hokage's office, Natsuki was telling Tsunade the details of this mission. Everything is detailed reports. It has been almost a month since he left the village, which is quite a long time, and this escort mission, which was originally only a B class, has completely risen to the level of S class. This, as Fanghua Xiaoxue personally promised, will increase the level of this task, and will also provide sufficient task rewards. After all, although this task has not made too many waves, in fact, the change of the power of a country has been completed, and this kind of task involving daimyo and regime change, regardless of the size of the country, is all S-class. And this task remuneration is also the highest. Ninjas basically do not lack money, precisely because the remuneration for various tasks is quite high, but at the same time, the degree of danger of the mission is also matched. I didn't expect that this task would have such a thing. Tsunade listened to all the details of the task reported by Natsuki, and spoke. Friend, you have worked hard. Hearing this, Xiaomu shook his head and said, it's not hard, the main time is too long, and the rest is not a big deal. Tsunade nodded, with a smile on his face, and spoke. In this way, your ninja profile will also add a record of S-class missions. Do you have any feelings? Friend, shrugging, Natsuki spoke. I don't feel anything, after all. This S-level task is not very difficult to do, but it is not as simple as unusually simple. Wordlessly glancing at Natsuki, Tsunade spoke. Yes, after all, you are a genius. Then again, friend, have you learned that technique? With an expectant look on his face, Tsunade looked at Natsuki. Under Tsunade's gaze, Natsuki nodded as a matter of course. Of course, I'm a genius. Relying on the super sky, hanging, talent, then, of the system. Hearing Natsuki's words, Tsunade's face turned pale, and he asked, really? Nodding, Natsuki replied seriously. Really? Syllable. Slapping on the table and standing up abruptly, Tsunade's face showed a smile of surprise, and he spoke. I didn't expect that you would actually be able to succeed in this way. Konoha no. The first Godspeed in the ninja world was born again. This news is really good. Now go to the training ground, use it to show me how far you have mastered this technique. Hearing this, Natsuki raised his hand and stopped. Wait, Tsunade-sensei, I just came back. How can I say that I should be given a few days off, right? Besides, I just did an S-class mission. Hearing Natsuki's words, Tsunade was stunned for a moment, knowing that he was too excited. Sitting down again, Tsunade decided, then in 3 days, test the development level of your technique, and forget about today. Nodding, Natsuki spoke. No problem, test it after 3 days. It's okay, then the task level re-evaluation matter. Please Tsunade-sensei, today I will go back first. Hearing this, Tsunade nodded and said, go back, Yuko is worried about you during this time. Hearing Tsunade's words, Natsuki nodded, his mother was worried about him, this is normal. Then, Tsunade-sensei, I'll go first. After Natsuki spoke, swish, the figure silently disappeared directly into the Hokage office, without any trace of using the teleportation technique. After noticing it, Tsunade's gaze was solemn, and he showed a smile that was really like this, and spoke. Flying Thunder God technique. With some emotion in his eyes, Tsunade spoke. It really made him successful. Friend, this guy, in terms of talent, completely surpassed the 4th generation of Hokage. Episode 78. Natsuki's house. Swish. A flash of light and shadow, Xiaomu's figure appeared at the door, directly pushed the door open, and walked in. I'm back. Click click. When the footsteps came, Hinata came from the house to the location of the entrance, looked at Natsuki with a smile, and said softly, Xiaomu-kun, welcome back. Stunned for a moment, Natsuki looked at Hinata, who was standing in front of him and smiling, and at this moment he even felt. Myself and Hinata are married. Handing Hinata the grass pheasant sword, ninja bag, and small backpack on his body, Natsuki spoke. Taking Natsuki's things, Hinata smiled and walked towards the room where Natsuki put these things. Just like a wife who was extremely gentle, looking at her back, Natsuki smiled with satisfaction. This feeling is. After changing his shoes, Xiaomu, who had some Wenqing disease, couldn't help but sigh. Is it happiness? It's really beautiful. Walking into the living room, where my mother was sitting, saw him walk in, and said, are you back? Good work. Hearing this, Xiaomu scratched his head cheekily and said, Mom, I'm sorry, it's been out for so long this time. Shaking her head, her mother looked at Natsuki and smiled. No problem, Mom, I'm still waiting for you to work the task, and then earn enough money to marry Hinata back home. With a somewhat embarrassed face, Natsuki nodded and said, Yes, I will definitely work hard to make money, get results as soon as possible, and then go to the Hyuga clan to raise a kiss, rest assured, Mom. At this time, Hinata had already come to Natsuki's side with a rosy face and sat down. Xiaomujuan, your things have already been put away. Heard it. She had just heard Natsuki say that he wanted to marry her, and for Hinata, this kind of words made her feel shy, and she also felt happy, so now Hinata, shy. The mother looked at the two sitting together, with a smile on her face and her eyes becoming more and more satisfied. Originally, when she knew that Natsuki and Hinata came together, she had also worried that as the eldest lady of the Hyuga clan, it would be difficult to serve, and whether people would look down on their son. Although my mother is just an ordinary woman, she still knows something. For the big family, the door is the most important, although Natsuki has a genius name, but the Natsuki family is just an ordinary ninja family, which is completely right. It's just that later, with several chance encounters with Hinata and Natsuki together, it was found that Hinata's personality was very good, and the Hyuga family did not seem to prevent the contact between the two children, and the mother was relieved. The daughter-in-law has already identified it a long time ago. As for the little girls who liked their sons at school, at the beginning, their mother's heart had already ruled them out. Because what kind of wife her son is suitable for, this is already clear to the mother. Hinata, the initial winner will be the final winner. After staying for a while, Natsuki personally sent Hinata back to the Hyuga clan, and agreed to meet tomorrow at the number 3 training ground, and then separated. Fast forward time and 3 days passed. Except for the first day, I went to collect the honorarium for the mission, and there was nothing else. Almost all of them are with Hinata, of course, while being tired and crooked, it is still necessary to instruct Hinata soft boxing practice. Whether it is the soft fist 64 palms, the Bagua Hui Tian, the empty palm, or the soft fist such as the soft fist double lion fist, Xiaomu has already mastered it. After all, I have been to the Hyuga clan so many times, and I will not gain nothing. So he came to point Hinata. It was quite simple. Although Hinata was surprised by Natsuki's understanding of the Hyuga clan's soft boxing, she was rooted in the strength of Natsuki's natural talent. After all, every time she took a new skill scroll, she would show it to Natsuki. For Hinata's misunderstanding, Natsuki did not explain, but just acquiesced with a smile. After his reincarnation eye is successful, others will not know that his white eye is a white eye, and will only think that it is a new eye-like blood succession limit. After all, there are still quite a few of the various eye-like blood succession limits in the ninja world. Blood eye, blood dragon eye, and more. Bang bang. A fierce exchange of hands sounded, and Hinata rolled her eyes, her face serious, and she was covered in sweat and kept attacking. Natsuki also coped with Hinata's attack with a serious face, calmly, with a degree of advance and retreat, giving Hinata pressure, and not making her completely unable to resist. This degree is quite accurate. After attacking for a while, Hinata's pace of attack suddenly stopped, and his face was solemn. Jyobu double lion fist. With both hands clenched into fists, Hinata shouted highly, and kept condensing chakra in his hands, wanting to form a powerful force. Airplanes. 2 huge clusters of chakras, forming 2 chakra-like avatars, appeared on Hinata's hands. However, after only a few seconds, the 2 chakras dissipated. With a look of frustration, Hinata's face had a look of disappointment and spoke. I failed again, Natsuki-kun. Looking at Hinata like this, Natsuki's face showed a gentle smile. I know, but this time the failure was a matter of course. Do you know why? Letting Natsuki help him wipe the sweat from his face, Hinata asked anxiously, why? Why does Jobu double lion keep failing? With a smile, Natsuki spoke. The first point, Hinata's current chakra amount is not at all to the extent of releasing the soft step double lion fist for a long time, although it can also be practiced, but in this way, your chakra cannot support the battle for too long. After a pause, Natsuki continued to analyze. Second, although your current chakra control is already quite excellent among your peers, it is obviously not enough to control advanced physical arts such as Jobu double lion fist. Speaking of this, Xiaomu said with a speechless face, then again, is uncle joking? Now Hinata, it's too early to practice this trick. Hearing Natsuki's words, Hinata directly chose to believe it, frowning and asking, so how can I improve chakra control? Hearing this, Xiaomu smiled slightly. Go find Tsunade-sensei chakra fine control. In the entire ninja world, Tsunade-sensei is one of the best, but it is better to say that Tsunade-sensei's chakra control should be the first in the ninja world. Hearing Natsuki's words, Hinata's face flashed with surprise. Is that so? Nodding of course, Natsuki spoke. Hinata, don't underestimate Tsunade-sensei, she is the best female ninja in the ninja world, a generation of heroes among women. For this, I believe that few people will question. Episode 79. Natsuki suggested Hinata so, not without reason. The huge chakra of the Thousand Hands clan can be finely controlled by Tsunade, creating forbidden techniques such as Seal and 100 How arts, which shows how much Tsunade's chakra control has reached. And let Hinata go to learn from Tsunade. Natsuki naturally had plans for a long time. After all, Tsunade can't teach him, so it's always no problem to teach his girlfriend well, right? Think about what Tsunade has to offer. One of the best medical ninjutsu in the ninja world, Monster Fist, In Seal, 100 Hero Technique. After these Hinata learned to master, combined with her own soft boxing system, she directly achieved the achievement of both internal and external cultivation, rigidity, and softness. At that time, Hinata's strength is definitely the ultimate elite shinobi, and even if there are other opportunities, there is no problem at all to reach the shadow level. After all, the Hyuga bloodline in Hinata's body is very rich. White-eyed princess, which refers to Hinata's bloodline, is pure to a certain extent. After the two chatted for a while, at the entrance of the number 3 training ground, 3 figures walked over. It was none other than Tsunade and Jiraiya, plus the Shizen 3 who held Tsunade's pet pig and dolphin. You two are really dating here. After seeing Natsuki and Hinata from a distance, Tsunade took the lead in greeting. If you two want to find you, there must be nothing wrong with coming here. Hearing Tsunade's words, Hinata's little face turned red, but he still greeted him seriously. Tsunade-sensei, Jiraiya-sama, senior sister Shizune, good morning. Natsuki's gaze fell on Zelaya's body, his eyes flashed, and he asked with a strong sense of war, Tsunade-sensei, is my opponent Jiraiya-sama? Hearing Natsuki's words, Hinata's gaze also looked at Jiraiya. Hinata also knows about Tsunade's test of Natsuki's strength today, so it's not surprising, but neither she nor Natsuki knows who the opponent is in this battle. Natsuki's question made Tsunade smile, roll up his sleeves, and speak. How is that possible? After a pause, Tsunade's face showed a bad smile and said, your opponents are me and Jiraiya. His pupils shrank, and Natsuki looked at Tsunade, who had no joking intention on his face, and his heart was solemn to the extreme. Phew. With a long breath, Xiaomu said with a solemn face, facing 2-3 shinobi at the same time? This pressure is not ordinarily large, but it has made my blood boil for a long time. Taking off his coat, Tsunade said with a smile on his face, no way, you kid is really too genius, has a smooth journey, and has never experienced defeat, so today I have to let you see the existence of Ninja Apex and what the real battle is like. After Tsunade finished speaking, he scratched his head in embarrassment. There is no way, Tsunade said, to take a good look at your friend, where your limit is. I just happened to have some curiosity, so I came to give it a try. This time the battle, your technique, can be used. Hearing this, Natsuki shook his head and said, it's okay, I'm ready, Tsunade-sensei, Jiraiya-sama, let's get started. Swish. At the same time as the words fell, Xiaomu's figure flashed, and he had already opened the distance of more than 20 meters. At the same time, facing the 2-3 shinobi, even Natsuki must be 100% cautious. Wish I could drop a few more cards. For Natsuki, fighting Tsunade and Jiraiya has 2 purposes. Test your strength, pick up high-quality cards. These 2 purposes alone were enough for Natsuki to agree to this battle, and Tsunade and Jiraiya obviously also had the intention of testing Natsuki's level. Otherwise it would be impossible for the 2 of them to play together. Seeing that Xiaomu withdrew from a certain distance, Tsunade stepped forward 2 steps and spoke. Looks like you're ready, so. Cellphone. Raising his foot sharply, Tsunade's face turned pale, and he spoke. The battle begins. With a strong fighting intent on his face, Tsunade shouted, Heavenly Keep. Boom, boom boom. A kick slammed into the ground, and Tsunade's terrifying strange power poured on the ground, instantly shattering the flat ground here. As soon as the figure moved, Xiaomu jumped up directly, and his hands were instantly imprinted. Huadu and How Fireball. Swish. At this moment, several shurikens shot towards Natsuki, and Jiraiya's figure instantly shifted to the other side. Friend, you have more than one opponent, and ninjutsu is used too slowly. Swish. The figure rotated slightly in the air, and Natsuki dodged these shurikens. Then let you see how quickly my ninjutsu is used, the art of fireball. Bang. Opening his mouth, a huge fireball rushed directly towards Tsunade, and Natsuki's figure fell to the ground, looked in the direction of Jiraiya, and grinned. Gang Fist, Flow Monster Power Fist. Boom. Bang. A punch smashed on the ground, directly shattering the ground. Piece by piece of dirt was shocked and flew in front of Xiaomu. Without any pause, Xiaomu's body, Leidu chakra was dense, clenched his fists, and punched out at these dirt. Gang Fist Flow Chaotic Stone Rush. Boom. Swish. Pieces of earth, like powerful cannonballs, went towards Zelaya in all directions. In the face of such an attack, Zelaya's face remained unchanged, and his hands were instantly imprinted and pressed on the ground. Tudu Antoliu Wall. Boom. For a moment, the place where Zelaya was located seemed to have been attacked by artillery fire. Cellphone. Just after attacking Jiraiya, behind Natsuki, there was a sound of breaking wind, and Tsunade had already killed behind him. Don't just look over there and forget me? A whip leg kicked directly towards Xiaomu's body, very fast, and the power above could be seen from the wind pressure generated. Too fast. Xiaomu's face remained unchanged, and while sighing in his heart, his figure suddenly disappeared. One blow missed. Seeing Natsuki who suddenly disappeared, Tsunade's eyes lit up. Flying Thunder God Technique, nice app. When Tsunade looked up, he instantly found Natsuki's figure. Swish. The sound of breaking wind sounded, and Xiaomu's figure appeared directly behind Zelaya, and a spiral pill condensed in his hand, and pressed directly towards Saleya. Spiral pill, boom, thundered. A large pit appeared on the ground, and Jiraiya's figure exploded directly into a cloud of white smoke the moment the spiral pill touched him. Shadow doppelganger. Natsuki fell to the ground and asked with a slight surprise, "So it is." Raising her head, Natsuki once again looked in Tsunade's direction, and Jiraiya was already standing beside her. The two stood together, although the movements were casual, but there was a seamless feeling. Seeing Natsuki's surprised expression, Zeelai also smiled and said, "Friend, don't underestimate me. Don't look at me like this. I'm also the legendary 3 ninjas." Tsunade crossed his waist with one hand, and also had a proud smile. The performance just now was good, and next, it's time to move the real thing. Episode 80. In the evening, the number 3 training ground. Bang! A huge fireball fell from the sky and exploded on the ground. In the air, Xiaomu's face had a solemn color. His eyes looked directly at the ground below. He did not dare to relax in the slightest. The sweat on his face kept flowing down, and his figure was falling towards the ground. Bang! A huge stone rushed into the air, towards the sky, and Natsuki, who was wrapped in thunder chakra, crashed over. Monster fist. Facing the impact of this stone, Xiaomu's face remained unchanged, and his fist directly blasted out. Boom. This punch went down, and the whole stone was instantly shattered. Fire escape great flame bomb. Bear. A huge fireball bombarded Natsuki from the other side the moment Natsuki shattered the stone, very fierce, and the timing was very accurate, it was almost in milliseconds. Shadow doppelganger art. Raising his hand instantly made a seal. A shadow avatar appeared next to Natsuki, grabbed Natsuki's arm, and threw him out directly. Crash. After landing, Natsuki slid on the ground and retreated for a long distance before he stabilized his figure. It's worthy of the 3 forbearances, although they didn't do their best, but it's still too difficult to gain the upper hand under the siege of 2 people. While landing, Xiaomu wiped the sweat from his face and said, "But it's good to be able to hold on." Swish. At this moment, Tsunade's figure flew out from among the trees on the side and punched Natsuki. "Now is not the time to wander your mind, friend." Facing Tsunade's fist, Natsuki's face had a serious color. "I know, Tsunade-sensei." At the same time as the words fell, Xiaomu also punched out directly. Boom. The 2 fists, one big and one small, directly bombarded in the air, and 2 huge strange forces burst out, and the strong wind generated was extremely terrifying. Click. Boom boom. With Natsuki as the center, the ground under his feet was directly shattered and cracked into pieces of land. After the blow, Tsunade directly unleashed his terrifying physical skills that he had honed thousands of times, forcing Natsuki to fight directly with her with fist to fist and foot to foot. Although Tsunade's strange power is terrifying, Natsuki also has a strange power fist, and compared to physical skills, Natsuki is also not afraid at all. The 2 people instantly transformed into humanoid tyrannosaurs, and directly began the confrontation above the strange physical technique in the 3rd training ground, and a large area of forest and ground were destroyed and shattered. Swish. Zilei's figure stood on a tree, looking at the 2 masters and apprentices who were fighting. A cold sweat fell on his face and spoke. Although it has been expected for a long time, the destructive power of these 2 people is really too powerful. Looking at Xiaomu, who was working with Tsunade hard rigid body technique, he couldn't help but speak. "Friend, this guy, the talent has completely surpassed Watergate, the 3rd generation. You can be regarded as having found a good successor. But it's a pity that you can't see this scene of his growth. It's a pity." Swish. At the same time as the words fell, Zilei's figure flashed, and he directly entered the battlefield, looking for an opportunity to insert into this battle. From the beginning, the main attacker was Tsunade, and Jiraiya assisted Tsunade with ninjutsu from the side, causing great pressure and trouble to Natsuki. And now this scene, even if he wants to interfere, he doesn't dare to. That strange fist is really not a joke. Once he was almost killed by Tsunade's punch, which shows the terrifying level of the strange power fist. The sun goes down and the moon rises. Phew phew phew. Natsuki's clothes were already wet with sweat, and he gasped for breath and sat on the ground, looking tired. Hinata was helping Natsuki wipe the sweat from her face distressedly, and this was the first time she had seen Natsuki fight to this extent. Next to him, Tsunade and Jiraiya also had a tired look on their faces, but looked at Natsuki with a very satisfied expression. After resting for a while, Natsuki stood up and said with a smile, "This time, I lost." Hearing Natsuki's words, Tsunade reached out and patted Natsuki's shoulder. Okay, you can be completely proud. After all, you are a man who fights 2-3 ninja at the same time, a day of time. Tsunade's words made Natsuki's face darken slightly. He had long wanted to admit defeat, but Tsunade and Jiraiya seemed to know his personality, and they didn't listen at all, knowing that after the sun went down, they could be regarded as letting him go. In fact, it is said that Natsuki lost. It is better to say that the 2 sides stopped. The Flying Thunder God technique, if used well, can completely escape in the attack of the 2. Then I'll go back first. Natsuki stood up, glanced at the 3 of Tsunade, and spoke. "Goodbye, Tsunade-sensei, Jiraiya-sama, and senior sister Shizune." Hinata hurriedly said hello, followed Natsuki's figure, and the two walked towards the village. Looking at Natsuki's back, Tsunade crossed his waist with one hand and let out a long sigh of relief. Zlai said with a serious face, "There is no doubt that the strength of this guy friend is already at the same level as us, and the only thing lacking is combat experience. It's hard to believe that this guy is only 12 years old." Hearing this, Tsunade had a smile on his face and spoke, "Isn't that of course? After all, he is my disciple." Hearing this, Jiraiya turned his head and glanced at Tsunade. "I picked up a genius disciple, you are finally lucky once." Nodding with a smile, Tsunade spoke, "Of course, but my friend is not only strong, but also not bad in other places. Do you think he worships me as a teacher, just to learn medical ninjutsu with me? It's naive to think." As he spoke, Tsunade put on the clothes that Shizune handed over and headed towards the village. "Go back." Zlai also stepped to keep up, thinking back to the details of today's battle, and couldn't help but sigh with emotion. Excellent reflexes, superb level of ninjutsu, physical skills, and illusions. The last terrifying chakra, which is incredibly huge and much bigger than Tsunade. As a ninja, Natsuki is simply a hanger. What an enviable ninja talent. The same is true of the way. On the way back to the Hyuga clan, Natsuki took Hinata's small hand with a smile on his face and asked, "What does Hinata think of today's match?" Hearing this, Hinata said without thinking, "Natsuki is the strongest and most powerful." Sideways scratched Hinata's little Cheong's nose. For her little fangirl-like reaction, Natsuki felt funny. "No, I'm asking, did you learn anything during the afternoon battle?" Hearing Natsuki's words, Hinata's face showed a hint of a smile, and her little face blushed. "I'm still worried about Natsuki-kun so I didn't pay attention to learning or something at all." Hinata Stay is worried about Natsuki's situation. After all, the opponent is 2-3 Shinobi. A little attention to the injury hospitalization, yes,